You want to know something brutal, by the way, Lagia? This is one topic we didn't address here, right? Which is that in Threat's career, he almost had, in English you say like he zigged when he should have zagged, like he went like the wrong direction. He almost fucked it all up, Lagia. Because remember, he played 1.6, and I can tell you right now, I won't do it because it'd be depressing. But if you go and look up on the esports earning website, Threat's not going to have much prize money. Because remember, he was in like the third best Swedish team. So even though, he was in some good teams, he's not going to have much prize money because prize money was small in 1.6. And if you remember, his era was super top heavy. It was like top 3 in the tournament, got nearly all the prize money. And then in CSGO, he was playing in the early days, but he was playing for a bunch of those like semi-pro Swedish teams basically. And then right at the moment when he got the offer to be the NIP coach basically, he even tried to sort of bail out of that and go to like Japan for a while or something. So it's like you almost missed the whole period where it was famous and there was loads of money Threat. Like you just got back in time, mate.
Yeah, I think I was a bit lucky, and also sort of lucky that I knew the right people that got me back into the scene again, because just playing off my 1.6 merits, I don't think that would have been enough.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it is hard, because I do... When I'm doing esports, I'm very much all in with the team I'm working with. So having sort of like, I went back to school, I finished my master's degree, and it for me, that's sort of just security in some sense, because if this would drive me mad at some point, I do have something to lean back on, because and it's actually because I'm so passionate about it, because it's very hard to do it 50%, or it's like, okay, I'm just an analyst now, which I tried for NIP. It's like that didn't work, obviously, because it's like you get really frustrated. Why are you guys doing this? Why are you guys doing this? And all of a sudden you're sitting there again and you're the leader. It's like, how did I get here?
Makes sense. Yeah.
It's good, but speaks also for yourself. I mean, not being like the best in CSGO and people still, and a team like NIP, like one of the most like hyped team back then, asking you to coach, that speaks obviously for yourself, and people would probably know why they did it. So.
And also, as you say, you basically had to earn your respect back in CSGO and get people to actually care about what you think of this game. Because it's easy to forget now, because nowadays, there's just been so many years of CSGO. Almost anyone who was from Source 1.6 who put in the effort probably got half decent because they've had enough time to get good at a new game. But I remember when the game first came out, CSGO, dude, loads of people who were from 1.6 were just terrible at the game or just didn't know anything about it. We're trying to take concepts from like how DOS 2 1.6 was played. And like, I've told this story before, so I won't say who it is, but there was like a really legendary Swedish person who once told me like how all the teams in CSGO are playing like DOS 2 wrong or something. But the problem is he was on some like boomer shit from like 2005 from 1.6. And I was like, dude, I know why you think that, because the map looks the same. But I was like, in CSGO, it doesn't play at all. This, like, he thought, for example, that like teams should play like, 2 CTs on Catwalk as CT or something. I was like, dude, this is an idea from like a different game 10 years ago. What are you talking? So my point is, people were pretty skeptical actually. Like, you had to sort of prove yourself again in CSGO. I've noticed that, which is legit. Everyone should have to do it, in my opinion. But yeah, basically, like you could basically Threat. You right now could just be a guy on a different channel, on like video on my YouTube. Like, yeah, I used to play back in 2008, but CSGO never happened for me. You got the perfect time. They even banned coaching like less than a year after you started doing it, mate. Yeah. You got to show off all your skills. It was perfect.
Yeah, I am really proud about that, and I have to sort of give myself some credit. I think I'm sort of really good at sort of calling bullshit, or like when players, maybe because I've been in the Swedish scene when I've seen so much bullshit, and I've seen because like people being lazy and they're so talented. Yes. And the classic thing is, I'm sitting there, it's like, if I was that talented, la la la. If I was that talented, I probably would be lazy too. I don't know. But then I've seen it, but then like gives me the perspective of like calling out bullshit. Like, for example, like sort of the forcing every round envious and sort of going on eco hounds, which is, I mean, I remember when I saw that, and that's what I realized I could really become a coach, because this is sort of objectively stupid.
Yes, of course.
You can actually measure it. That is bad to do it, and they're doing it. I was like, take a second, write down on the paper. It's like, here it is. Yes. You shouldn't do it. But you're doing.
But you know what's crazy, by the way, is that's a perfect example of way back in the day where Lurpus actually nailed something that all fans were telling him he was wrong about. He was so on point. Because back then, obviously, when they first invented force buys in CS, especially when like the CZ was overpowered as fuck, it was worth it. Like, it was so cheap. It used to be $300 to buy. It was like insanely overpowered. And if you had a couple of them, like, your chances as a CT team was pretty good at getting back in round if you like stack a couple of people behind a corner or something. But what Lurpus even said back then that he was right about was this. He said, yeah, they do it now because it's correct, but just wait, and even when it no longer makes any mathematical sense and it clearly isn't right, they'll still all do it. And the reason why is this, and he's so right, is at the end of the day, we all want to believe we're like true sportsmen and that we're playing this like it's chess and there's all rules. No, at the end of the day, even pro players still, like, the word player is in it. They play, it's fun. They do shit for fun in the game. And so he was right. He was like, basically, the reason they'll always force buy is because even when it doesn't make sense, they want to have a gun. They don't want to just have a save and just have a Glock this round. Like, they don't want to know the round's lost. They want to feel like they have a chance with a deagle and go. Like, it sounds crazy if you're a fan because you think, like, what the hell? Don't these guys get paid like 25k months? Like, they do, but we're just not at the level of pro sports yet, guys. Like, people are just doing stuff for fun. They just did, like you're saying. Like, there was like a whole year where it was objectively wrong how they would force buy like that, but everyone in the world did it.
Yeah,
everyone.
I have a funny story from this year with my players, actually, so I'm going to call them out a little bit here, but they're really good at listening to this. So I think it was CT Inferno, because a lot of teams have been struggling on the CT force buy, because a lot of teams do this where they lose the CT pistol round, and they always go for the force buy on the second and a full leak on the third. Like, that's sort of the default way of doing it. And that's sort of like, if you actually start like counting, like doing the math, it's like it actually makes sense if you have quite a decent success rate on the second round. Yeah, anyway. But my players, exactly like you're saying, they just want a force buy because it feels really good. And it's like, they always remember the 3 digs they got through the being Inferno. So, and I looked through the numbers on our CT force buys on Inferno. I went through all the maps. And I found some like really interesting things. So like I asked them, it's like, okay, guys, you say like you should definitely force by CT Inferno, right? Because like you win it. I'm like, yeah. It's like how many like the percentage of win rates? And they try to be humble, like it's not 50%, but let's say we win like 35-40%. It's like we literally never won it a single time.
All right.
Yeah, okay. I thought the data was wrong, but like I went back and looked through all the demos. It's like, something that must have been a scream or something. Like, never done it, boys. So it's like, either we come up with something new or we stop doing it, right?
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
No, because that's also the problem with pros, isn't it? It's like, I get it, because a part of being a pro is like you're just living in this moment now and you're just doing what you think's correct at this moment. But the problem is, they sometimes don't think of the bigger picture. Like in that case, like there was a similar story that Khan once told me where he once tried to argue with Gox about whether it's correct to like peek in a post-plant scenario where you're the one with like you're the terrorist defending the bomb. And obviously you can just make the CT go and tap the bomb, can't you? I always used to go mad at this with my teammates, mate. I would always say, like, mate, he has to physically touch the bomb or kill you. Like, you can control where he can move right now. Like, you know, if you think different about the problem with being really skilled players is they just think, well, it's like Zantares does now, big. They think I'll just peek and shoot him in his head and then I'll win as well. And it's like, well, that's brilliant, but like I'm not you, so I can't do that every time. So to me, it's like, why would you waste your time? Why not like play the highest percentage scenario? And the story goes like this. Gox told him, like, Khan was trying to do it like the Socratic method, you know, where you just ask them questions and you hope they arrive at the answer themselves and just instead of telling them what they should think. So he was telling him, like, well, how often do you think you win those scenarios where you peak instead of, you know, just using the time? And he was like, maybe like 80% of the time. And he was like, no way 80%. Like, you know, maybe, listen, you're really good. So maybe like 60%, 70%. He's like, nah, pretty sure it's 80%. And the point here is players just like remember, however, they're just remembering one time it happened. And in their brain, it's like, yeah, that works. Like, there's no way he looked at those numbers because there's no way it was 80% in these like 1v1 duels. Nobody in the world. But players just have a different way of thinking. Like, their idea of comfort is very different to what coaches.
The most mind-blowing thing about this is because I will going back to the force buy on CT Inferno for us. I thought it was like 30% at least. Right?
Sure.
Yeah, I thought it. The problem is now that you have the data, why would you argue when you have data like that? That's the stupid thing. It's sort of, especially when it comes to, I think all teams do this. I've done it before. I think a lot of other teams, like when it comes to pistol rounds, it's like this team is good on pistol rounds. On this map, they were like, and they just see the pattern is like, I don't know, Fnatic, 3 pistol rounds in a row. Oh, they're so good on pistol rounds. And then you really look at it like through. I guarantee you, if you look at the statistic from this year, the best team in the world on pistol rounds, I would be surprised if it's higher than 55%. Like maybe it would be like 58. That would be like insane.
Yeah.
Because it is much closer than people think. Even when it comes to regular rounds, I looked at Prime Astralis in 2018. Their win percentage of rounds, like they won every tournament, right? Those
It felt like it, yeah.
yeah, they had 55% win rate in rounds, and that means so. Let's pretend you're a team that can win 60% of the rounds. You would be like by far the best team ever,
Yes.
ever, right? But Gux, he did win 80%
in his mind. Yes, exactly. No, apparently I've heard it's the same apparently in like tennis, that if you ever look into it, that like the best player in the world only wins something crazy like something like this, like 56% of the games or something, you know. But the idea is that's how small the margin is to be the absolute best, or to be, you know, the 100th best guy. Like it's not even that large. No, but that's the problem though. Players always exaggerate in their minds. I'm amazed you actually had the data there, because like the idea it never ever happened, but they thought it was like 50% is pretty crazy. It never even happened once.
Exactly. Like I didn't even believe it, and I was so surprised. Like, yeah, we think it's easy, but it's like in reality we've never done it. Like it's.
What about this? One thing I want to ask you about is this. I know from talking to a lot of coaches that another thing that annoys some in-game leaders and coaches is that to a fan, they just say, well, just look at Astralis. Like, why don't you just do things the way they do? And it's like, listen, first of all, there's a lot of in-game leaders don't even have the same philosophy that they do, so it wouldn't work anyway. But more importantly, even if as an in-game leader or a coach, you have a philosophy where it would be like, I would say it would just be nice to. Forget doing it. Like, it would just be a luxury to be able to play the way Astralis does. The problem is you might not have the players to do that. You might not have the organisation that'll give you the time to set it all up. Like maybe they just want someone to come in, get the 5 players they have now and just do 2 placings better in the next tournament. Like different organisations have different philosophies. So I feel like fans are really underestimating how hard it's going to be to implement a team like an Astralis in any other organisation. It's going to be really tough.
Yeah, you need. I think Legia talked about this before, where it's like they have such a good set of players who really work hard, and it's quite clear. I think I could make the case that they have the best communication out of all the teams in the world, right? And it's really showing, because sort of like you can look at their seeding Inferno, and I understand the theory behind everything they're doing, but executing it is actually quite difficult, right? Because you have to do things on the other side of the map, and it's to be timed perfectly. And people find these windows, like let's talk about Arch on Inferno, right? People are so good at hitting the timings when you're rotating back to B and throwing the smoke, yada, yada, yada. But Astralis is like, they understand these gaps, and they sort of just master the execution of like the basic theory so well.